All right. Welcome back to another Sister for Sister story time session with your favorite sisters, Shia Fire, the Demon Slayer. Okay, so yesterday we talked about Memphis in May. We went over the definition of barbecue and the origins of human cannibalism. Now, today we are continuing in the to talk about the May festivals of sacrifice um, in relation to the Bible, Masons, Freemasons, Eastern Stars, and Illuminati, whatnot. Okay, so to start off, I just lost my train of thought. Um, okay, so I have a book or a ebook here that talks about the symbolisms of the Freemasons. One second. Okay, so I'm just going to touch on the parts of the book that speak on Baal. Uh-huh. So this is the all-seeing eye. So one of the most prominent symbols in Masonry is the all-seeing eye. A single eye appears almost everywhere you look today. Ralph Anderson, a 32-degree Mason, gave a speech in 1985. He said, "A brief word about the future. The Tibetian, a demonic spirit guide, tells us the three main channels through which the preparation for the new age is going on might be regarded as the church, the Masonic fraternity, and the educational field. All of them are as yet failing to meet the need and to respond to the inner pressure. But in all of these three movements, disciples of the great ones are to be found, and they are steadily gathering momentum and will before long enter upon their designated task." He tells us further, the Masonic movement, when it can be divorced from politics and social ends and from its present paralyzing condition of inertia, will meet the need of those who can and should wield power. It is the custodian of the law. It is the home of the mysteries and the seat of initiation. It holds in its symbolism the ritual of deity, and the way of salvation is pictorially preserved in its the all-seeing eye, the work can go forward. It is a far more occult organization than can now be realized and is intended to be the training school for becoming advanced occultists. In its ceremonials lies hid the wielding of the forces connected with the growth and life of the kingdoms of nature and the unfoldment of the divine act. In the comprehension of its symbolism will come the power to cooperate with the divine plan. It meets the needs of those who work on the first ray of will or power. The eye used in Masonry is a representation of Osiris. Pike clearly reveals that the all-seeing eye is the emblem of Osiris, the creator. He also maintains that Osiris's power was symbolized by an eye over a scepter. The sun was termed by the Greeks the eye of Jupiter and the eye of the world, and his Osiris's is the all-seeing eye in our lodges. Masonic author Carl Cloudy writes, "This is one of the oldest and most widespread symbols denoting God. We find it in Egypt, in India. The open eye of Egypt represented Osiris. In India, Siva is represented by an eye." Albert Mackey, 33rd degree Mason, agrees. He states, "A symbol of the omniscient and watchful providence of God. It is a very ancient symbol and is supposed by some to be a relic of the primitive sun worship." Volney says that in most of the ancient languages of Asia, the eye and the sun are expressed by the same word. Among the Egyptians, the eye was the symbol of their supreme god, Osiris, or the sun. To the ancient Egyptians, the right eye symbolized the sun and the left eye, the moon. Legend recounts how an eye of Ra, which had fled from Egypt, was brought back from Nubia by Anhur, and how this divine eye became enraged upon seeing that another eye had taken its place. Ra then set it on his forehead, where it became the Urias, which protected the god against his enemies. The eye, or Urias, was to become the effective rule of the world, and as such was to be worn by the pharaohs as a symbol of their majesty and their descent from the sun god. Since the all-seeing eye represents Osiris, let's look at who Osiris is. He committed incest with his sister, Isis, which resulted in the birth of Horus. Pike says Osiris was the image of generative power. He is also the Egyptian god of the dead as well as sun god. Remember that the Bible reminds us that the Christian's God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. Matthew 22:31 through 32, Mark 12:26 through 27, and Luke 20:37 through 38. Osiris is known by many other names in other countries. In Thrace and Greece, he is known as Dionysus, the god of pleasures and of partying and wine. A contrast between this pagan god and the true Christ once again becomes obvious when we look at the Bible. When Jesus was on earth, he was called a man of sorrows, not a god of pleasures. Isaiah 53:3 prophesied of Jesus that he is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief, and we hid as it were our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Festivals held in Dionysus's honor often resulted in human sacrifices and orgiastic or sexual rites. In Rome, Osiris is called Liber or Bacchus. The Lydians named him Bessarius, and in Persia, he is identified as Mithras, where astrology is practiced by his followers. He is Zagreus to the Cretans and became an underworld divinity who welcomed the souls of the dead to Hades or hell and helped with their purification. The Phrygians know Osiris as Sabazius, where he is honored as a solar deity or a sun god who was represented by horns, and his emblem was a serpent. In other places, he went by yet other names such as Deus, the boy Jupiter, the centaur, Orion, Saturn, the boy Plutus, Iswara, the winged one, Nimrod, Adonai, Hermes, Prometheus, Poseidon, Boots, Dardanus, Hemerus, Embors, Isaiah, Zeus, Ichus, Hu, Thor, Baal, Seraphis, Ormuzd, Apollo, Thamus, Attis, Hercules, Shiva, Moloch, and believe it or not, Baal. The Bible condemned Baal worship. In Jeremiah 32:35, we find that the Israelites built the high places of Baal, which are in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to cause their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire unto Moloch, which I commanded them not, neither came it into my mind, that they should do this abomination to cause Judah to sin. Jeremiah 19:5 mentions that the Israelites burnt their children with fire as burnt offerings for Baal. So now we have a little better idea of who Osiris is and what the all-seeing eye represents. The symbolic sign for Osiris and the sun is the point within the circle. This symbol was covered in the chapter The Circle, but as a brief reminder, the point within the circle is a phallic symbol. This symbol also stands for the sun and for air. Mason and occultist Albert Pike contends these two divinities, Isis and Osiris, the active and passive principles of the universe, were commonly symbolized by the generative parts of man and woman. The Indian lingam was the union of both, as were the boat and mast and the point within a circle, all of which express the same philosophical idea as to the union of the two great causes of nature, which concur, one actively and the other passively, in the generation of all beings. In signs and symbols of primordial man, we find that the point within a circle is an equivalent for the eye, and the two are co-types. Therefore, it may be inferred as the fixed star at the center. It was the primordial all-seeing eye in the astral mythology. The all-seeing eye then has the same phallic meaning as the point within the circle. In spite of this, the Short Talk Bulletin, a Masonic pamphlet, has an article entitled The All-Seeing Eye. It states the all-seeing eye is to Freemasons the cherished symbol. Therefore, the thinking Freemason has reverence for this symbol. Robert Hieronymus, an occultist, wrote, the single eye, alone or in a triangle, was used extensively by Freemasons and other secret societies. Alice Bailey, whose husband Foster Bailey was a 32-degree Mason, also talked about the eye. She said, I would first have you note the emphasis upon the I in this formula. It is a keynote and appears in various guises. Behind all the ideas lies the concept of a seeing one, looking on at the created whole. This same concept is to be found in the fundamental Masonic symbol of the eye of God, which dominates everything within the temple. Bailey then goes on to mention that the eye of God is Shiva or Siva, the destroyer. Remember, Shiva is the Indian god who is the equivalent to Osiris. Shiva is also a synonym for Satan. Charles Vail, a Mason, writes, this is the symbol of the higher clairvoyance. The master always possessed this sight. In India, this all-seeing eye was called the Eye of Siva. The Egyptians represented Osiris by the symbol of an open eye and placed this hieroglyphic of him in all their temples. In the lodge, the all-seeing eye represents the omniscience of God, the eye that never sleeps. It may also represent, as in the ancient mysteries, the higher vision. Masonic author J.D. Buck agrees. The eye of Siva is, in fact, an all-seeing eye, for it practically annuls space and time as concepts on the physical plane. A real master then has the eye of Siva. The pineal gland, dormant in others, is active in him, and the vibrations of his brain correspond to the synthesis of sound and light. Hieronymus remarks, the single eye also has been identified with the third or spiritual eye and therefore with clairvoyance. The esoteric tradition relates the single eye to the inner light, intuitive power, illumination, and the philosopher's stone. Many authors recognize that clairvoyance is gained through use of the third eye. For instance, a book entitled The Third Eye describes how T. Lobsang Rampa entered Chakri Lamassari, the temple of Tibetan medicine, where he learned clairvoyance, levitation, and astral projection by learning to open the third eye. In Yoga Made Easy, we find that the sixth chakra is said to be the seat of the mystical third eye, which accounts for the clairvoyance claimed by some yogis. In fact, yoga and visualization are two methods used to open the third eye. For centuries, the secrets of Kundalini yoga have been guarded by the yogis of India, known to the ancients as the sixth sense. This extraordinary life force, which makes it possible to open the third eye, is located at the base of the spine and can provide an inexhaustible reserve of energy and knowledge. Alice Bailey, an occultist, declared, through the practice of the power of visualization, the third eye is developed. Bailey also wrote, no man is a magician or worker in white magic until the third eye is opened, or in process of opening, for it is by means of that eye that the thought form is energized, directed, and controlled, and the lesser builders are swept into any particular line of activity. The eye of Shiva in the human being has its position, in the center of the forehead between the two visible eyes. Laurie Cabot, a witch, remarks, furthermore, the term third eye is not just a fanciful metaphor conjured up by witches and psychics to sound mysterious. Anatomists believe that the gland is indeed a remnant of a third eye that never developed in the course of evolution. From the oldest times, sages, magicians, and witches have spoken of the third eye as the doorway to all knowledge. Ancient peoples have intuitively understood the importance of this power spot and honored it in various ways. In the Orient, it is one of the seven chakras. Egyptian monarchs wore a cobra-headed ornament at the center of the forehead. In India, a red dot is placed over the third eye. Celtic priestesses painted the area blue. Cultures that use ritual face makeup often single out this area in front of the pineal gland for special attention. Pay particular attention to how you adorn your forehead where the third eye is located. East Indians wear a red dot over this chakra point. Ancient Druids wore crowns with a band of jewels in the center of the forehead. The African Berbers use black makeup to tattoo their faces with stars, moons, and other magical symbols. A quartz crystal worn across the third eye can be particularly powerful. A Masonic book states, these considerations lead us to an interesting topic, the eye of mind or the eye of Horus, a subject elaborated in the chapter on Horus and conveying the idea of the all-seeing eye. The end set before the Egyptian neophyte was illumination, that is to be brought to light. The religion of Egypt was the religion of light. A former witch and Mason comments, to open the eye a little bit is to experience psychic powers. To open the eye completely is to have your brain flooded with the pure consciousness of Lucifer himself. This is why one of the Masonic symbols is the all-seeing eye. It is a symbol of illumination. This is Satan's counterfeit for being born again. In it, you acquire a personal relationship with Lucifer. You begin to think his thoughts and see with his eyes. You begin to look at humans the way he does. It is not a pretty experience. There is some very revealing information found in The Power of Karma, written in 1937 by Alexander Cannon. The author says that much of that which is prophesied in the book of Revelation is to come to fruition. He goes on to mention that those who have the mark of wisdom have nothing to fear. He then notes that this mark of wisdom needs explanation. He indicates that those who have had superior past lives, meaning reincarnation, have been singled out for leadership. It results in seership, in clairvoyant gifts, and a type of intellect that perceives the hearts of men, their innermost ambitions, without the necessity for physical speech. He finally explains, you have a literal sign upon your foreheads, placed between your eyebrows. Doubt it not. We speak whereof we know. Now, that sign upon the forehead is ever the mark of the soul in Christ. It is ever the mark of those aligned with the great truth of light. It is the mark of those who have incarnated to render unto God the things that are God's and found a new order in the current generation. The time has come to tell you that as you minister, so shall you be saved. As you join the ranks of those who presently walk with the sign on their foreheads, so are your wants supplied by those who recompense you for the services performed to them and their children. If you read Revelation 13, you will find some astonishing information. The mark that is put upon the foreheads is not the mark of the soul in Christ, but is rather the mark of the beast or the Antichrist. Once again, we can see how the occultists and New Agers twist the scriptures and make the good evil and the evil good. The Bible warns, woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe unto them that are wise in their own eyes and prudent in their own sight. Isaiah 5:20 through 21. Also notice that Canon said that those who have this mark will have their wants supplied. Again, turning to Revelation 13, we find that only those who have the mark can buy or sell. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Revelation 13:16 through 17. We need to point out, however, that those who take this mark will end up in hell. Receiving the mark of the all-seeing eye or the third eye is not something glorious like the New Agers would have you think. Revelation 14:9 through 11 points out, and the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever, and they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. The all-seeing eye is also related to the blazing star. Pike tells us, the blazing star has been regarded as an emblem of omniscience, or the all-seeing eye, which to the Egyptian initiates was the emblem of Osiris, the creator. With the yod in the center, it has the Kabbalistic meaning of the divine energy manifested as light, creating the universe. The blazing star in our lodges, we have already said, represents Sirius, Anubis, or Mercury, guardian and guide of souls. Our ancient English brethren also considered it an emblem of the sun. Accordingly, the blazing star has been regarded as an emblem of omniscience, or the all-seeing eye, which to the ancients was the sun. We've already covered some of these pagan gods like Anubis and Mercury earlier in this book. Ryan Eisler, a feminist, mentions that the eye is one of the symbols of the goddess. One goddess that was represented by an all-seeing eye was Ma'at. The Egyptian priesthood taught first that Ma'at, the goddess of truth and judgment, possessed a third eye. Later, the central text of the Egyptian mystery religion was revised, and a male god, Horus, son of the goddess, was given the all-seeing eye. Here they go with the leaf blowers. Okay, so Lori Cabot agrees that the Egyptian goddess Mayat originally possessed the all-seeing eye, which later was transferred to Horus. She adds, outlining the eye emulates the goddess, who is often portrayed with large, distinctive eyes capable of seeing through space and time as well as into our innermost hearts. Ishtar, the goddess of light, was known in the ancient Middle East as the eye goddess because the light she brings from heaven to earth illuminates the world. She continues, the goddess's ability to see and know all things became a terrifying concept in patriarchal times, and her mystical eye was turned into the evil eye. The evil eye is defined in the complete book of witchcraft and demonology as the power of the glands to harm others. In witches, we are told no one would want a witch as an enemy. Some witches use the evil eye on their victims. One glance from a bad witch could mean real trouble. People became afraid of the evil eye and therefore they sought ways to protect themselves from it. Different charms and amulets were used. For instance, in amulets and superstitions, we find the amulet used against the evil eye was called Bascanian or Probascanian and Facinum, and it was usually in the form of the phallus. As children were especially liable to be attacked by the evil eye, models of the phallus were hung around their necks. Other names of the phallus amulet were Mutonium, Scaevola, and Satirica Signa. Another object used as protection was the Holmes hand or the devil salute. Budge writes that a closed hand with the first and fourth fingers outstretched represents the horns of the devil. Nevertheless, models of such a hand were worn as amulets. A closed hand with the first finger alone outstretched was in some countries regarded as a sure protection against the evil eye. That reminds me of The Color Purple, with that meme with Whoopi Goldberg pointing. Cabot remarks, many customs and terms continue to reflect the importance that horns once held in local folklore. The word scorn comes from the Italian word that means without horns. For to be without horns was a sign of disgrace, shame, or contempt. Holding up the index and little fingers in the form of horns was a gesture to ward off the evil eye. And since it was the male animal that had horns, the horn easily became a phallic symbol. In fact, Shiva, a synonym for Satan, can sometimes be seen making this gesture. In India, where the occult sciences are still followed, figures of Shiva, the destroyer, is not only placing his right hand over his solar plexus, but has folded his fingers so as to form the sign of the horns, thereby combining the sign which drives away the evil eye with that of destruction, of which he himself is the embodiment. Although he is the Lord of death and destruction, he is also Lord of birth, through whose hands the dead man's soul passes once more into reincarnation. We must remember that the devil's salute, which is covered in the chapter entitled Hand Signals, is a Sicilian sign of the devil used to cast spells. This certainly is not any sign that a Christian would want to make. When one makes this gesture, one is actually calling on the devil to protect him from evil. Satan must laugh when someone innocently uses this signal to ward off the evil eye. Hex signs are also used to fend off the evil eye. To hex means to place a curse on someone or something to bring bad luck. A witch remarks, many people say that the hex signs were painted on barns to protect livestock from harmful spells, negative influences, and the evil eye, and to bring luck and prosperity. She then gives extensive instructions on how to make your own hex sign talisman. She starts by saying, on the night of a full moon, cast a magic circle in your customary manner and consecrate your hex sign with tools of the elements. Sprinkle salt on the hex sign for earth, etc. Again, many people are attracted to the Pennsylvania Dutch hex signs, not knowing the occult connection behind them. J. Gordon Melton asserts, among the Pennsylvania Dutch, there is the survival of what seems to be genuine witchcraft-like practice, locally termed powwowing. One must call it witchcraft-like because while it involves magic and the psychic, it is theologically a Christian derivative with Kabbalistic elements. The most obvious manifestations of the powwow power are the many colorful hex signs on the farmhouses in eastern Pennsylvania. Each sign is a circle. Within the circle are birds, hexagonal stars, etc. Powwowers are, in essence, Christianized witches working in the agricultural society of the Pennsylvania Dutch. They have a grimoire, a book of spells and magical procedures, and they are as feared for the ability to hex as they are liked and sought after for their ability to heal. Grimoire is a name applied to any book on black magic which pretends to teach the practice of black magic, especially the art of the evocation of evil spirits and making an alliance with them. Another resource states that the grimoire is a book containing formulas for calling up and controlling the demonic beings, a manual of ceremonial magic. Of course, there is no such thing as Christianized witches, for the Bible clearly states that no one who practices witchcraft will go to heaven. Now, the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, hearsays, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revelings, and such like, of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. Galatians 5:19 through 21. But the fearful and unbelieving, and the abominable, and murderers, and whoremongers, and sorcerers, and idolaters, and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. Revelation 21:8. Many other amulets and talismans are used to supposedly protect an individual from the evil eye. Earlier, we mentioned that the blazing star was connected to the all-seeing eye. Well, In a Masonic bulletin on the blazing star, we are told that it is a hex sign. One author reports one of the oldest and most important symbols of Masonry is the Egyptian hieroglyph of the eye, or the evil eye. It represents their god Osiris. It dominates the top of most Masonic documents and now dominates the back of the Great Seal of the United States. Its presence on the Great Seal suggests that secret societies were instrumental in creating the new nation of America and still have an important influence in the present day. Not only does the Great Seal of the United States sport an all seeing eye, but so does our dollar bill. We've already covered some of the Masonic symbolism in the dollar bill in the last chapter. What does the United Nations mediation room, the Egyptian pyramids, the Temple of Understanding, and the prayer room in the United States Capitol have in common with the Great Seal of the United States? The all seeing eye, of course. Since this all seeing eye represents the third eye of occultists and New Agers, as well as Masons, it's no wonder that we see an increase in the widespread use of single eye designs. One author wrote, perhaps not coincidental is the recent commercial for an EOS, meaning dawn in Greek, camera which zooms in close on only one of the sports figure's eyes. There are also recent television ads by Glidden Paint that focus on one eye, the left eye, for a long time. Now, no coincidence. So the bull that was sitting in my family's back porch where I'm at right now, it fell over yesterday. I was trying to put it in my video, guys said, but when it fell over, it broke, and the left eye broke off out of all the other pieces. Like the other eye was still connected to the other parts, but the left eye broke off of the bull, which was really odd to me. But anyway, so concerning the new age, one will increasingly see figures showing or emphasizing only one of their eyes on television ads or on magazine covers, etc. In esoteric or occult terms, the right eye represents Osiris, the male, and the left eye represents Isis, the female, which also makes you think about Left Eye, the singer. A single eye, indistinguishable as left or right, represents the all seeing eye, Horus Hawk from Egypt. In the last few months, covering just over a year, Time magazine has had 10 covers with single eyes prominent. Secretary of Education Lamar Alexander on the 9/16/91, Ted Turner 1/6/92, Susan Faludi 3/9/92, Ross Perot 6/29/92, Kevin Butchberger with the caption "Come Out of the Darkness" 7/6/92, Bill Clinton 1/4/93, Zoe Bard 2/1/93, Cyberpunk 2/8/93, Boris Yeltsin 3/29/93, and The Info Highway 4/12/93. Also see Ross Perot on Newsweek's cover of 4/27/92. It is noteworthy that Ted Turner, 1990 Humanist of the Year, is on one of the covers with only one eye showing, because June 14th, 1986, when addressing about 1,000 futurists at John Denver's Windstar Institute, Turner said at Snowmass Village, Colorado, that America must elect a new age president if it wants to survive through the year 2000. According to Broadcaster Ties, Survival to New Age President, The Denver Post, June 15th, 1986. Other magazine covers with single eyes or an emphasis on one eye are Science Digest, March 1981, Time, April 26, 1993, May 17th, 1993, and June 14th, 1993, and Discover. There are also books such as The Illuminatis trilogy, The Unschooled Mind, and Multiple Intelligences that have a single eye on the cover. It is interesting to note that Time Warner's logo is an all seeing eye. It was Time Warner who made a 7-year, $80 million deal with Madonna in 1992. They also published her filthy pornographic book. A report put out in 1995 said that in 1994, there were 14,313 sex incidents, 8,333 violence incidents, and 23,556 profanity incidents on primetime TV. One of the top 12 sponsors for this trash was none other than Time Warner. They also fund the Council on Foreign Relations, a one world order organization. Time Warner gave $1 million or more to the New American Schools Development Corporation. Additionally, they gave $100,000 or more to the Points of Light Foundation. The Points of Light Foundation was begun with a $5 million grant from the U.S. Congress and the President. Its first chairman was J. Richard Monroe, formerly the chairman of Time Warner Inc. Not surprisingly, the logo for the Points of Light Foundation is also of an occultic nature. It depicts the golden sun disk with what at first glance appears to be a torch of light within. But wait, is it not the concealed image of two entities, a male and a female, facing each other? Occultic philosophers can easily recognize these two as the sun god and his goddess. Of course, the interest in the eye goes back many centuries. Dr. Dennis Cuddy writes, both King Henry VII and his granddaughter Queen Elizabeth I, Queen of England 1558 through 1603, used the phoenix as one of their badges. Queen Elizabeth I, to whom President Bush is related, was also fascinated by men's eyes. Favored servants of the Queen signed their letters to her with symbolic eyes, and John Dee, who headed the British espionage network, signed himself 007. Dee, an acquaintance of the Queen's husband, the Earl of Leicester, was an alchemist, astrologer, psychic, and spy. According to Mind Wars 1984 by Ron McCrae, former associate of columnist Jack Anderson, the basis for his 007 signature was each zero representing an eye and the 7 being the sum of 2 eyes. 4 other senses, and last, mystical knowledge from the 9 spirits, muses, who spoke through Dee's crystal ball, the show stone. Dee credited the 9 in his show stone with uncovering a Spanish plot to burn the forest that provided wood for English shipbuilding. Whatever the source, the plot was real. Had it succeeded, the Spanish Armada might have sailed unopposed in 1588. In the eye, Queen Elizabeth's garment is described in detail. We are told the sumptuous robe of Elizabeth I is embroidered a remarkable serpent upon the sleeve, and a deft scattering of eyes and ears elsewhere, no doubt to signify that nothing escaped the attention of the Virgin Queen, our English Diana. In Masonry, the symbol of the all seeing eye can be disguised by the use of other symbols. Ancient operative Masonry reveals instead of the ever watching eye, you at times behold the square and compass and the letter G, floating in a spiritual light which words cannot describe. These visions are but glimpses of the human ego, which is veiled from the eyes of the profane. We've covered these symbols elsewhere in this book, but when these symbols are seen, remember that a satanic, all seeing eye stands behind them. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the yin yang symbol. And remember, as we go over these things, we're going to apply it to everything in our environment. So, for one, you have the Bible or whatever religion you relate to. Musicians, these people who we're listening to, putting in our ears, the yin yang twins. Um, what is a twin? Where do twins come from? You have to take everything into consideration. Now, we're still talking about Baal and um, how this relates to end time prophecies and human sacrifice. So the yin yang symbol can be seen almost any place one looks. It is used in logos, on book covers, in the New Age movement, in the martial arts, and so forth. Yin and yang are considered to be opposites. Yin represents eternity, dark, feminine, left side of the body, etc. Yang is its opposite and represents history, light, masculine, right side of the body, etc. Yang is male, positive, and represented by the sun. Yin is female, negative, and represented by the moon, says Paul E. DeSotos in The Gem Kingdom. The symbol itself dates back at least to the 4th century BC and has been identified with the Eastern philosophical religions of Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism. In the Western world, it has long been adopted into the symbolism of myth, magic, astrology, and witchcraft. A book, Black Magic, White Magic, explains the yin yang like this. Another ancient magical sign called the yin and yang first appeared sometime before the 3rd century BC in China. This emblem became a favorite of sorcerers and mystics throughout the Orient because it too embodies so many possible meanings. One well-known witch, Sybil Leek, who is called the mistress of the occult, proclaims that the yin-yang theory is an idea that inspired such things as Chinese boxing, breath control used in yoga, meditation, etc., the use of special herbs, and some rather erotic sexual exercises designed to nourish the yang with the yin. She adds, crucial to Taoism is the idea of yin and yang. According to the ancient Chinese philosophers, in the beginning was Tao, but then Tao separated into the two prime principles, yang and yin. And from the many combinations of yang and yin, everything else that is in the world has emerged. Yang and yin produced the 5 elements, which are metal, wood, fire, water, and earth. Everything in life is is in a constant state of flux. In fact, the only thing that you can be sure of is that it will change. Another book states the yang yin symbol is one of the easiest to recognize and understand. It represents the two opposite, conflicting forces found in every action and which are responsible for the dynamic universe. The yang and yin operate in the universe primarily through the agency of the five elements: earth or Saturn, water or Mercury, metal or Venus, wood or Jupiter, and fire or Mars. These elements, under the guidance of the five planets, form, with the sun and moon, the seven rulers. Each of the elements may also be yang or yin, so that combinations of all these could produce broad number possibilities and astrological alternatives. Each, of course, has its symbol, which can be and often was incised into jade. The concept of yin and yang, also called tai tu, likewise plays an important role in many other occult practices. For instance, Dictionary of Mysticism states the following about the practice of shushu. Shushu, the ancient Chinese system of magic, divination, and occult practices, including astrology, dream interpretation, the art of coordinating human affairs by the active and passive principles of the universe, yin and yang, and the five elements, wu, xing, fortune telling by the use of the stalks of the divination plant and the tortoise shell, and miscellaneous methods such as dream interpretation, the regulation of forms and shapes of buildings, etc. Of course, many of the Chinese exercises, medical practices, etc., are also based on the theory of yin and yang. In health, a holistic approach, we find the techniques of acupuncture, acupressure, and moxibustion apply needle pressure or thermal heat stimulation, respectively, to meridian points to effect a change in the orderly flow of qi through the meridians. This treatment helps to reestablish the yin-yang balance by initiating normal energy flow in stagnant meridians. The choice of meridian points to be stimulated is arrived at by using specific laws derived directly from the five-element theory and knowing the order of qi distribution in the meridians. The five-element theory is the practical, tangible application of the complementary opposites, yin and yang. The Chinese system of physiotherapy or therapeutic exercises is represented primarily in the practice of Tai Chi Chuan, which is a system of exercises performed in close coordination with regulated breathing. The exercises are comprised of 37 movement patterns, the composition of which is regulated by the principles of yin and yang. The philosophy of Tai Chi Chuan is rooted in Taoism, which advocates natural effort, and in the I Ching, or Book of Changes. The movements and inner teachings are derived from the complementary relationship between yin and yang, two fundamental forces that create and harmonize the universe by their interaction. The interaction of yin and yang is vital to the practice of Tai Chi Chuan, since physically and mentally the practitioner is continually shifting between empty and full, and soft and hard, to achieve a proper and evolving equilibrium. In fact, Tai Chi came to be represented by the circle divided into the light and the dark, yang and yin. Other interrelated techniques dependent upon yin-yang are zone therapy, polarity therapy, macrobiotics, shiatsu, Jinshin, Duin or Doin, the martial arts such as Kung Fu, Qigong, Karate, and Tai Chi, etc. Palmistry, the occult practice of foretelling the future by reading the hand, is also based on the theories of yin and yang and the five elements. In another occult book, The Chinese Art of Healing, written by a Buddhist monk, the author explains how the ancients relate massage, which includes reflexology, to the five elements and to palmistry. He states the thumb, for example, was associated with the spleen, which belonged to the earth element, the index finger with the large intestine, metal element, and so on. The form of massage known as from the water element to the earth element reminds us of occult concepts of this kind. According to Oriental magicians, the palm of the hand contains the secrets of life. There was also an ancient Chinese school of thought which maintained that the palm of the hand was a replica of yin and yang and could provide information about illness and good health and one's entire fate. For more information on reflexology, see the booklet Hidden Dangers of Reflexology. Masonry also used the concept of yin and yang in their symbolism, but it is in a disguised form. Albert Pike states that the black and white pavement symbolizes the good and evil principles of the Egyptian and Persian creed. It is the warfare of Michael and Satan, of the gods and titans, of Balder and Lok, between light and shadow, which is darkness, day and night, freedom and despotism. Masons also use the two triangles to represent this idea of opposites. In the Short Talk Bulletin, a pamphlet which is to be read in the lodges, we are told that the triangles are symbolic of good and evil, day and night, the Chinese, yang and yin, etc. The two triangles joined together to form a hexagram indicates sexual union. This same viewpoint is also associated with the yin yang. In our phallic heritage, we are told, but since union of the sexes is necessary to produce offspring, both sexes were represented in most religions. In the crudest forms of worship, representations of the genitalia of both sexes or of the sex organs in union were worshipped. Such was the worship of the phallus, cases in Greece and Egypt, the lingam yoni in India, the masbasher of Syria, the yoseki inseki in Japan, the yin yang yin in China, and the Baal Peor of the Canaanites in the Bible. Now, I just want to make a note here for those who are familiar with Illinois. There is a city called Peoria. Peoria is also the name of certain streets in Chicago that I'm aware of. So just drop a comment if you know what I'm talking about, but we'll go into Baal Peor soon. Okay. So Masonic author George Oliver states, thus the monad and the duad were the phallus and catus, whatever that word is, K-T-E-I-S of the Greeks, the lingam and yoni of the Hindus, the Woden and Frigga of the Goths, and yang and yin of the Chinese, and indeed of the creative and destructive powers of every country under heaven. This thought is reiterated in myths and symbols in Indian art and civilization. Lingam and Yoni, Shiva and his goddess, symbolize the antagonistic yet cooperating forces of the sexes. Their sacred marriage, Greek hieros gamos, is multifariously figured in the various traditions of world mythology. They are the archetypal parents, father and mother of the world, themselves the firstborn of the pairs of opposites. First bifurcation of the primal cosmogonic reality, now reunited in productive harmony. Under the form of Father Heaven and Mother Earth, they were known to the Greeks as Zeus and Hera, Uranos and Gaia, to the Chinese as Tian and Tai, Yang and Yin. One catalog that sells statues of gods and goddesses as well as many other occultic items states, at once the most sacred and the most mysterious path to higher consciousness. Tantra refers to the divine union of opposites. Taoists refer to these energies as yin, from yoni, the active principle, and yang, the recumbent principle. Since there is some yin or female in the yang, male, which is represented by the little dot, and some yang in the yin, the concept of bisexuality is also symbolized. Charles Berger remarks, sometimes efforts were made to make gods bisexual. Hermaphrodites is the best example of this. He was the son of Hermes and Aphrodite and embraced Salmaco, a nymph who called upon the gods to make them inseparable. The gods heard the plea and formed of the two a perfect being who possessed the characteristics of both sexes. Mm. From this mythical being comes the term hermaphrodite. Omphale was a queen of Lydia and the task mistress of Hercules. She is represented with a lion's skin and a club, male symbols, while Hercules wears her gown and spins for her. I don't like it. Omphale is thus represented as double sexed, as is Hercules by his dress and his work. The name Omphale is a bisexual name coming from Om, the universal mother, and the phallus, the male organ. Likewise, Janus of the Greeks not only had opposite faces, but was double sexed or hermaphroditic. The New Age movement looks favorably on homosexuality. In fact, in alchemy, the androgyny, meaning male and female in one body, was considered to be the image of human perfection and wholeness. By some ancient traditions, the original and perfect form of the human being, a fashionable look among some celebrities. Bly, Nin, and Jung tell us that each individual must achieve inner marriage of their masculine and feminine natures to encounter true equipoise. The assumption of yin yang also leads to homosexuality. In one issue of the Whole Lifetimes was a letter from David Lang. He wrote, for example, macrobiotic theory explains homosexuality as a yin-yang imbalance caused or at least aggravated by excess consumption of yin foods, such as raw fruit, on the part of males, and excessive ingestion of yang foods, such as animal flesh, on the part of females. Mhm. Tex Mars explains, homosexuality and bisexuality are accepted, even encouraged by the New Age teacher. The unholy doctrine of reincarnation and the principle of yin yang are perfect excuses and rationale for homosexuality and other forms of sexual immorality. If you are a homosexual or a lesbian in this lifetime, New Age teachers believe that it is probably because you were a person of the opposite sex in a previous incarnation or past life. The residue and influence of that past life is simply retained within your brain and consciousness. Bullshit. The yin yang principle, also called unity, integration, or polarity, holds that a person is born with both masculine and feminine traits. A man supposedly could have been a man 250 times and a woman 250 times in previous incarnations. And the memory of those past life experiences are said to remain as indelible traces of consciousness. Thus, we are each a combination of male and female, masculine and feminine. The New Age encourages children and adults to appreciate and practice the harmony of opposites, teaching the individual to merge the two selves, man and woman. Many of the gods and goddesses of paganism are shown to have dual sexual natures. Mercury, called the male female, was an androgynous. Even much symbolism contains this dual nature. For instance, the serpent's head and neck is distinctly a masculine symbol, but the serpent is sometimes symbolized with its tail in its mouth, Ouroboros, the body forming a circle, which is feminine. Also, the mouth is feminine, while the tail, which is in the mouth, is masculine. Ew. Thus, for two good reasons, the serpent with its tail in its mouth represents both sexes. Sacred fire was also prepared on religious occasions by rotating a realistic wooden representation of the phallus and a wooden representation of the ketis. That's what I'm going to say. Rotating being done by an apparatus resembling a bow. The cornucopia, or horn of plenty, was double sexed in symbolism. The horn was masculine and the inside was feminine. The fruit inside symbolized productiveness of the female. The four-limbed cross generally had a different meaning and represented the male and the female in unison in the act of creation. From time immemorial, a perpendicular line or object has been used to symbolize the phallus, and the horizontal line, the ketis or vulva. The surface of water, a female element in creation, was horizontal, and women were practically in the horizontal position in the act of creation. Prostitutes were spoken of as women who made their living horizontally, and the term was applied to women who kept in their own room. The term was applied to women who were kept in their own room by some wealthy man. Coitus has been called horizontal exercise. Horizontalis, horizontals, is one of the names which the French apply to women who sell love favors, women of easy virtue. The four-armed cross was an easy figure to make, being an intersection of two straight lines at right angles, and it became a symbol of man's most lofty and most holy activity, expressing the reverence for the act. Some of the Asherahs of the Bible represented Baal in union with Ashtoreth. The results of the union between the sexes resulted in a new life. Separately, man and woman were incomplete, important, and barren, but in their union, they became a perfect soul, realizing the immortality of life. We'll cover the symbols mentioned above, the Ouroboros, cornucopia, and swastika, in more detail later. One particular group that knows the sexual implications of the yin yang and intentionally uses it as their official symbol is the Sex Information and Education Council of the United States, or SICUS. This group promotes extensive sex education in schools. SICUS position statements reveal the following. It is the position of SICUS that contraception independent access to contraceptive care as do others. It is the position of psychics or seekers that the use of explicit sexual materials, sometimes referred to as pornography, can serve a variety of important needs in the lives of countless individuals. Another group using the yin yang knowingly or unknowing is the Girl Scouts. On page 60, the yin yang symbol is used to represent the world in my community proficiency badge. In the Junior Girl Scout handbook, yoga exercises are explained. The theme for their 1987 program was the Year of Magic. The I Clung Book of Changes is another occult practice that incorporates the use of yin yang. Jeffrey Parinder writes, the yin yang dualism entered into Confucian orthodoxy by its incorporation into the I Ching, a late compilation from and rational arrangement of earlier works on divination. William Spear teaches astrology and macrobiotics and has been using the I Ching for 20 years. He states Taoism, inseparable from the philosophy of the I Ching, is based on the complementary yet antagonistic principles of yin and yang, which mutually create and destroy each other by the ceaseless rearrangements of their relationship. The basic rule they obey is life's only certainty, change. One ad for a book by Diane Stein on the I Ching, also called Kuan Yin, tells us the Kuan Yin Book of Changes is a wonderful book finding admirers with not only New Agers and feminists, but others such as pagans, divination fans, goddess worshippers, and those involved with Eastern philosophy. Of course, Diane Stein isn't the only pagan who uses the I Ching. A witchcraft magazine, Circle Network News, gives an extensive ritual to be used in connection with the I Ching. Part of the instructions are an altar should be set up in the middle of a room facing north. Lay the stalks in the middle of the altar along with the I Ching book that you are going to use and your I Ching journal. Include on the altar other ritual tools and symbols that you feel you need. Be sure to include burning incense. Ritually purify yourself and the space with techniques of your choosing. Ground and center. Call the quarters and spirit in a fashion that feels appropriate. Once you have determined the hexagram, draw it in your journal. Look it up within the text of your I Ching book. When you feel complete with your answer and have recorded all relevant information in your journal, pay respects to the I Ching in whatever way you feel comfortable. Thank the spirit helpers or demons and the quarters for helping with your work. New Ager Jeffrey S. Stamps likes to use the yin yang in a slightly different form. He calls his symbol the emergent Tao. He explains, the ridge pole symbolizes the line of the roof, thus separating heaven from earth. As a line, the ridge pole is unity, yet it generates duality, above and below, a right and left, front and back, in a word, the world of opposites. As a symbol of change, Tao too may change. To compress my thought of many pages to a single symbol, I often emergent Tao. This symbol extends the traditional Tai Chi symbol of the circle with a ridge pole dividing the complements of yin and yang. I have added the spiral curves between the outer circle and the two inner circles. With these lines, the symbol clearly expresses emergence and levels. The circle of the whole and the higher and lower, smaller circles or levels. Emergent tau expresses the essence of holonomy, complements, levels, and unitary process. The yin yang symbol is quite appropriate today for humanists, New Agers, witches, Satanists, etc. As Michael Tierra, a proponent of the yin yang theory, states, the yin yang theory is a teaching method and does not define anything absolute. There are 7 laws concerning the yin yang, one of which is 2, everything changes. This is an important item to notice. The idea that everything changes does not agree with the Bible. There we find that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Hebrews 13:8. He doesn't change. James 1:17 also states, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and cometh down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. Malachi 3:6 tells us, I am the Lord, I change not. Another law is 3, all antagonisms are complementary. Again, this is contradictory to scriptures. This would make Jesus and Satan complementary to each other, which is blasphemy. Yet another law is 6, the extreme of any condition will produce signs of the opposite. Again, applying this to Christ would mean that because he is the extreme in goodness, mercy, compassion, etc., that he will produce signs of hate, injustice, unconcern, etc. This also would make Satan eventually become kind, loving, obedient, and so forth. The Bible warns, woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe unto them that are wise in their own eyes and prudent in their own sight, which justify the wicked for reward and take away the righteousness of the righteous from him. Isaiah 5:20 through 21 and 23. In addition to the 7 laws of yin yang, there are 12 theorems. One of these is 8. Nothing is solely yin or yang, everything involves polarity. This is stating that nothing is entirely good or entirely evil. This again contradicts the scripture, for in Habakkuk 1:13, we find that God is of purer eyes than to behold evil and canst not look on iniquity. The Bible also tells us that there is no truth in Satan, John 8:44. Obviously, the yin yang theory is not consistent with God's word. We'll cover the sinister aspects of the hexagram later, but it's interesting to note that an illustrated encyclopedia of traditional symbols tells us that the hexagram is affiliated with the Chinese occult symbol of yin and yang. The connotations, therefore, of the hexagram also apply to the yin yang symbol. There are probably hundreds upon hundreds of groups that have used the yin yang in their logo or symbolism. Some groups probably do so innocently, but I believe the majority of them know exactly what they are doing and what the symbolism means. On the following pages are just some of the ways in which the yin yang is being used. Okay. All right, so now what was that? Keep up with learning. So we did the yin yang. This is the triangle. So the triangle is a very important symbol to the Masons and Eastern Star members. When a new Eastern Star chapter is established, the officers elect are to form an equilateral triangle around the altar. The altar itself is shaped in the form of a triangle. Traditionally, one angle is directed so that it points toward the east. The pentagram itself is made up of triangles. Of course, like the pentagram, the triangle can be used in two different positions, and each position has a special significance. A triangle with one point down represents the deity and is called the deity's triangle or the water triangle. With one point up, it is called the earthly triangle, pyramid triangle, or the fire triangle. And this emblem symbolizes the perfect or divine man. Manly P. Hall, a 33rd degree Mason, boasts man is a god in the making. George H. Steinmetz, another Masonic writer, brags, be still and know that I am God, that I am God, the final recognition of the all in all, the unity of the self with the cosmos, the cognition of the divinity of the self. Joseph Fort Newton, a well known Mason, claims that the third degree of Masonry testifies to the profoundest insight of the human soul, that God becomes man, that man may become God. This theme of godhood or the divinity of man can be found in book after book written by Masons, the New Agers, witches, and Satanists. Masonic author J.D. Buck states, it is far more important that men should strive to become Christ than they should believe that Jesus was Christ. That's 11:11. Arthur Edward Waite writes that the master builder of the third degree does actually rise as Christ. In a book written by a 32nd degree Mason, Charles H. Vail, entitled The Ancient Mysteries and Modern Masonry, we find the consummation of all this was to make the initiate a god, either by union with the divine being, point, pause, without, or by the realization of the divine self within. Man is like God, like, emphasis on the like, and it's almost 11:14 and my phone is at 14%, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Okay, this theme of godhood or the divinity of man has to also be the object of the Eastern Star, since no one can become an Eastern Star member without having the close relative who has received the third degree of Masonry. It is that degree which is claimed to make a Mason a divinized man. There is more symbolism involved in the triangle, though. The triangle with one point up just happens to be the symbol for Set and Shiva. In Signs and Symbols of Primordial Man, written by Albert Churchward, a Mason, we find that this triangle with the one point facing upward was the symbol for Set or Sut. In India, the triangle is the caste mark of the followers of Shiva, who wear it on their forehead. Another Masonic writer, J.S.M. Ward, adds, with the point upwards, the equilateral triangle stands for Shiva the destroyer and signifies the flame which rises upwards from the funeral pyre toward heaven. This symbol is familiar to us, the Masons, in several degrees, notably the 30th degree. There's no contradiction here, for Set is the Egyptian devil and Shiva is the Indian god of destruction. Both names, Set and Shiva, are also listed in the Satanic Bible as another name for Satan. Furthermore, Helena Petrovna Blavatsky affirms, now we have but to remember that Siva or Shiva and the Palestinian Baal or Moloch and Saturn are identical. So then, when the Masons and Eastern Stars tell us that the triangle represents the deity, we know which deity is being worshipped by the symbolism of the triangle. Another clue as to which deity is being worshipped may be found in Alice Bailey's book, Discipleship in the New Age. She claims it might be said symbolically that the point of the triangle is based in the courts of heaven or Shambhala, and from that point, two streams of power pour forth. Shambhala is the mythological place where the Lord of the world, Sanat Kumara or Shiva, who is actually Satan, is supposed to live. Bailey is looking forward to the time when there can be the inauguration of a new phase of activity in Shambhala. This will enable the Lord of the Word to become the ruler of a sacred planet, which up to date has not been the case. Interestingly, Bailey reminds us that Masonry emanates from Shambhala. Lynn Perkins, a Masonic author, also agrees. He mentions that Shambhala has a bearing on the ancient origins of Freemasonry and upon its future in the coming Aquarian age. He adds, Shambhala, the legendary and mystical home of the great masters of the wisdom, out of which ancient and modern Freemasonry sprang, is the site of the Great White Lodge of Initiate Masters, which, as a brotherhood of mystics and occultists, is a prototype, an original model, of which every Masonic lodge is a more or less perfect physical and spiritual replica. That Masons of today are aware of the existence and significance of the esoteric tradition that encompasses the whole purpose and destiny of every living soul is no proof that it does not exist. Yet another meaning for the triangle has to do with the sexual reference. Without going into detail, I'll just mention that it represents the male and female generative organs. When the two triangles are joined together to form a hexagram discussed elsewhere in this book, it depicts sexual union between the male and female. Masonic author R.H. Mackenzie states, triangle, an important symbol in Masonry. The equilateral triangle was adopted by all ancient nations as a symbol of deity and was regarded as the most perfect of figures. It constantly recurred in craft masonry as well as in the royal arch. The right-angled triangle was also regarded as an important figure. Among the Egyptians, the base represented Osiris, or the male principle, the perpendicular, Isis, or the female principle, and the hypotenuse, Horus, their son, the product. John Yarker, a Mason, writes, the basis of the Masonic jewel of a master in the chair is an old Egyptian symbol. For Plutarch informs us that a triangle whose base is 4, perpendicular 3, and hypotenuse of 5, the square of which is equal to the square of those sides containing the right angle, was an important emblem in Egypt as a symbol of nature. The base figured Osiris, the perpendicular Isis, and the hypotenuse Horus, the originating and receptive principles and the offspring of the two. Another Masonic writer reveals the triangle is found variously arranged throughout the Masonic system. In one instance, we have the interlaced triangles, one black, the other white, The white triangle has its point up, the black triangle points down. Thus arranged, it represents the union of the active and passive forces of nature. It represents the male and female elements. The interlaced black and white triangles represent the forces of darkness and light, or yin and yang, error and truth, ignorance and wisdom, and good and evil. When properly placed, they represent balance and harmony. In the gods of India, we find the triangle with its apex upward is also taken to represent fire, identified with the male principle, the linga or phallus, symbol of Siva, the progenitor, or of the cosmic person, Parusa. Its numerical symbol is the number 3. The triangle pointing downward represents the force of inertia, which pulls downward and tends to suppress activity. It is associated with the element water, which always tends to come down to equalize its level. It is the passive aspect of creation and thus is represented by the yoni or female organ, the emblem of energy or sakti or cosmic nature, prakrti, whatever. Other symbols associated with the element water are the arc of a circle, the crescent, and the wave. Corresponding number symbol is the number 2. Our Swinburne climber in the Mysteries of Osiris or Ancient Egyptian Initiation writes, the phallus or lingam and the yoni, the male and female emblems of generation, are found in the triangle and the top. The lesbians and gays like to make use of the triangle symbolism. One catalog catering to lesbians states, the triangle is a symbol of gay and lesbian identity, community, and pride. It says that we are out, standing up, unifying across the breathtaking diversity of our kind, and that we are committed to our freedom and our lives. The triangle is also an ancient glyph for vulva, for the feminine. The triangle was reclaimed by the gay liberation movement in the 70s as a symbol both of resistance to oppression. Nor thieves, nor covetous, nor drunkards, nor revelers, nor extortioners shall inherit the kingdom of God. Closely related to the triangle is the pyramid. One author writes, the pyramid has a close relationship and symbolic significance to the triangle. Indeed, the pyramid is shaped in triangular form. A number of New Age communities and groups, such as the Institute of Healing Sciences in New York, have erected pyramid shaped structures. Some New Age churches display small pyramid. New Agers believe in pyramid power. Some wear energy forces into their bodies. Others make cardboard pyramids and place them into close proximity with foodstuffs, believing in the curative and preservative powers of pyramids. We can see that the triangle represents pagan gods and has a sexual connotation. When the upward triangle and the it forms the hexagram or the six-pointed star. We will cover this symbol in the next chapter. Okay, so we're going to end it there at the hexagram, chapter 5. Ooh, okay. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'll be back later or tomorrow. Not sure. But just stay tuned. Keep a lookout for the next one. All right. Peace, love, and hair grease.